Welcome back. You got Will and Iman here from the Block Runner, MetaZone, Rovi, and MScribe, and today we got the Alpha.
The Alpha is here.
The Bitcoin has the Alpha, and we're gonna explain it.
Yeah, the Alpha has finally come.
Yeah.
Bitcoin,
So
explain what you mean by Alpha, dude, because that can mean a lot of things these days. Alpha is literally the term. Are you a superior male to another? Therefore, you are an Alpha, right?
Right. Versus a beta, right?
Beta. Nobody wants to.
Yeah. There's no app called beta.
That's right. Nobody wants that energy.
Yeah.
Right? So the energy of the Alpha has now permeated
Onto Bitcoin.
onto
apparently.
Bitcoin. Yeah. So in comparison to FriendTech,
Yeah.
I think that's a cooler name. I don't know.
Oh yeah, 100%.
FriendTech.
FriendTech.
You didn't like that from the rip.
No. Yeah. Right off the bat, I didn't like it.
Yeah. So this is a little bit. I think I don't know what the direction of the name was, but we've already kind of like extrapolated a potential use case for it, which is we have an Alpha channel in our own Discord where we kind of like drop the latest Alpha, right? The things that we're discovering and the opportunities we're identifying, stuff like that.
Right.
Right. So it's like, hey, let's platformatize that. It's kind of like what these things are, right? These social apps where people can, bring on their communities and distribute this Alpha.
Yeah.
In a much more like connected way, right?
Yeah, these developments like FriendTech and Alpha, they're more about like why not do it, right? It's not like it has like a particular purpose, but it's like we can do it, so why not?
Correct.
Right. So let's talk about what we're talking about exactly. So new Bitcoin City, Alpha is officially here. It's a FriendTech of Bitcoin. Alpha is set out to be one of the leading socialfi apps.
Interesting.
So it's built on Bitcoin, fully decentralized and permissionless, and optimized UX for key trading and alpha calls sharing.
So we have a little bit of experience with FriendTech. We onboarded for like a day or two. Yeah. Just to kind of, experiment, see what everybody's, talking about in that realm. And it was cool. I enjoyed the user experience. Like, they definitely built a very good app where they put all the Web3 like shenanigans on the back end.
Right.
And the front end design was very clean and crisp and stuff. So it was pretty good, right? But outside of that, we haven't really used it much.
Yeah, I feel like the main value for something like this, FriendTech and Alpha, is a dedicated like output of content into this channel.
Correct.
Yeah. Otherwise, what's the point?
Well, it's also like the introduction of a market where people are now, I guess, speculating on the value of like your social influence, right? Like that's really the big thing that's been enabled here, because clearly we don't need more like communication channels. Do we have? Yeah, I think we got there's an abundance of that in existence. Yeah,
there is,
but we haven't really been able to like socially engineer like a mechanism where we can like monetize.
Yeah, a financial social infrastructure.
Right, where now everybody gets like a reach into that, right? Before, influencers, they make all the profits off of their influence. They sell products and stuff like that. Yeah. But now like their own community who's being influenced, I guess, can now like partake and also support and then like,
give some alpha, right? They, there's people in the community who have alpha that want to like
absolutely
use a megaphone, I guess.
Yeah, we ourselves historically we found so many like critically important things in this space because of our community, right?
Yeah, 100%. That's like the main source of like alpha generation is through the community.
Agreed. So these apps have a purpose, in other words, and they're definitely not nothing burgers. And but yeah, the FriendTech thing, we're gonna look at a couple of headlines here. It was obviously a success story, right?
Yeah. So on this article here, and all the links will be in the description, but Friend.tech records 2 new milestones amidst renewed hype. So over here, it says, as a result of the upward trend, FriendTech also reaches its height trading volume of 18 million on Wednesday.
That's just one day, dude.
So,
in case you didn't know, Wednesday was just one day.
One 24-hour period.
That's right.
Thank you, dude.
You're welcome.
The alpha
That's
for you
what
guys.
I'm here for, dude.
The new alpha, right? The platform recorded 1.9 million of capture fees, representing another all-time high on the same day. So it seems like people are onboarding onto FriendTech, and they're, I guess, like a new wave of entrants, right? Of new community members.
So. Basically, there's still, because there was like an initial like awareness spike. Then like a trickle for like a solid month, I would say. It's like, FriendTech kind of lost some steam, but it's just like a resurgence happening. People are out there at the conference we just had in Singapore, like really talking up this thing is like, this is a prime example of like how you build a product for like that's Web3 native.
Yeah, but it seems to me it's like people are just speculating on accounts, right? It's not like there's an actual use case of like.
Well, it's to be seen, I guess, because you have to be a user yourself and see if these big name accounts are actually
providing some value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which they probably are, you would expect. But
yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe it's purely just like a speculation.
So it says the population of traders on the decentralized application experienced a significant increase with unique buyers surpassing 155,000.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the number of unique sellers climbed to 75,000.
Yeah, and then on the next headline, it's kind of like it showcases what this is all doing for Base. Base is now like the prime L2. If you can click on the next one, the next headline article, there you go.
Yeah, so first mover Americas. FriendTech drives up Coinbase's Base blockchain activity.
Yeah, it's pretty significant here, dude. Like that's
so.
I mean, you got to know all this activity is coming from one app. There's not much else happening on Base for sure, and it's lapsing everything.
So all this means that because of FriendTech, Base is the number one
right now. As of now, yeah,
that's crazy.
That's what killer apps do, dude.
Yeah,
it's a killer app. This is a prime example, and that's why people are so enthused and excited about it, right?
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I mean, that's why Xbox survives because of Halo.
Halo?
Yeah, if it wasn't for Halo.
True.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. Not anymore. Maybe back in the day.
Oh, yeah. It's like back in the day. That's what I'm referring to. It was like day one Xbox.
Yeah, this is why originally when we covered FriendTech, I suspected, like, Coinbase had a much bigger part and, kind of like building
orchestrating this narrative.
Yeah, like this coalition to support FriendTech.
Okay, so let's take a look at this next one here. So we're
all this is coming to Bitcoin is the real big thing, right?
Yeah,
people like it, people want to see it, and but the interesting thing about this is that this isn't like an Ordinals native application, because to build any kind of app with Ordinals, it's very complex at the moment.
Does that bother you that it's not Ordinals?
Me personally?
Yeah, personally,
no.
Okay, yeah, me neither.
But
it bothers some people.
Yeah, I think it bothers a lot of people. Specifically because Ordinals has done so much to like.
Well, why do you think that is?
Momentum. It's like the Ordinals movement has like all this momentum. You don't want to like, I guess, give some of that off to some other like tertiary Bitcoin ecosystem. I guess, even though they're all collectively adding to this build on Bitcoin movement.
Yeah.
So like, that's why I don't feel anything.
Yeah, I don't think you can build everything exclusively on Ordinals, anyways.
No, well, not in its current state.
Yeah,
without a doubt. There's a lot more infrastructure that needs to be laid out. So that's why, people who are trying to build actual apps, they're doing it with these, alternate technology.
Yeah, because you can't do it on Ordinals.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'd probably do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So here's another tweet by New Bitcoin City. It just goes over how to get onto Alpha, and it just walks you through the entire app. I know a lot of people are asking us for like how-to videos, and I guess we'll see what we do about that. But
it's to be determined if we're actually going to partake.
Yeah.
We're still kind of deliberating amongst ourselves. It feels like we should, just because this is like a Bitcoin native experiment.
Right.
And part of our like responsibility is to like get into the deep knowledge of like what's being done on Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's typically what we do in many cases, but this one is like tied to like the block runner, right? And so it's different. It hits different.
What do you mean?
Like like getting into DeFi. Like, how do we explain DeFi if we are not in it using it, right?
Yeah.
So we got to get into it and use DeFi to explain it.
Correct.
So it's the same with this. Like, we need to get into it to explain it and break it down, right?
I think so.
But the only hesitation is that it's tied to the name. Like, it's like the block runner's keys are being traded. In
the event like this is like goes sour or what?
Yeah.
For any kind of reason?
For any reason. Any reason that's not connected to us, right? It's like...
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
It's like exposure on the second degree or something like that.
Right. Well, I mean, we're going in it purely from like an experimental perspective without a doubt. So, and we say that with anything that we discover in this Ordinal space, right? Everything that we find interest and value in, like we have to collectively recognize, this is all super experimental, super high risk.
That's right. That's right.
And purely for entertainment value.
That's 100% accurate.
Yeah. So we're going to get probably pretty entertained by alpha.
And this idea, this concept that we're talking about is I guess illustrated by Bob Bodley's tweet. So he tweets and explains New Bitcoin City and Alpha here, and then he has a second tweet. He follows up this tweet with, been chatting with tons of people over the last 24 hours about my Bitcoin Friend.tech Alpha post, and I've learned Alpha is way more Bitcoin than I originally thought. Yeah. Alpha is as Bitcoin as BRC20 is.
Okay, so it's basically like another meta protocol. Yeah. Or I guess the inner workings of what enables Alpha to exist, which is Trustless Computer.
Trustless Computer, correct.
Which is the thing, right? Because we've talked about it before. It hasn't really like garnered any like real adoption yet, but with this, there's real potential now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are interested in this. Who doesn't want to be on the FriendTech of Bitcoin,
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, if FriendTech is the one sort of like keeping Ethereum above water, so to speak.
Yeah.
Then that happening on Bitcoin is that much more interesting.
It's very valuable, right? Yeah, and who knows how long it's going to take the Ordinals ecosystem and infrastructure to mature to the point where now we could build like a Bitcoin, like a FriendTech on Bitcoin. It might take a year or more. Who knows?
Yeah,
there's no real timeline for all this stuff.
Yeah, and it's not all sunshine and rainbows, says Trevor. So he says that according to his opinion, it's like a bad take. He says that the trust assumptions are similar to Ordinals as a stretch. Ordinals consensus actually uses Bitcoin script, PSBTs, which is partially signed Bitcoin transactions for trading, and BRC20s uses PSBTs for trading. This is not as Bitcoin as that. And so Bob fires back with Ordinals doesn't really have a consensus. And yeah, we can use PSBTs for trading, but those PSBTs are just Bitcoin for Bitcoin. If you have a dishonest indexer, you lose your funds.
Right. So he's kind of like he's pretty much directing the attention on that. It's like, yeah, the infrastructure of Ordinals itself, even though like, the ethos of Ordinals is everything is on chain.
Right. You still have to
rely on this completely off chain like force.
Yeah.
That is 100% human, like organized and controlled.
And 100% critical to making Ordinals work.
Yeah. Without it, Ordinals, they're there, but they serve no real anything.
Yeah.
There's no knowledge of where they are, what they do, what they're for. Like,
So it's just Bitcoin. It's just Satoshis.
Yeah. You're just sending Bitcoin with like some scribble.
Yeah.
Attached to it. It's without the indexing, architecture. So he's kind of like laying this parallel of like, in this like second layer virtual machine environment that's executing all these transactions or whatever.
Yeah.
Leveraging smart contract functionalities from other ecosystem or layer ones. At the end of the day, all this shit is getting packaged and sent to Bitcoin at the end of it anyways.
Right.
So there's trust over there that, there's an indexer sequencer environment happening there, just like you see on Ethereum L2. Right?
Yeah.
You got to trust these actors to, be honest in all scenarios.
And I feel like this is a consequence of being so early is that there's no trustless component to this part of any ecosystem, right? Ordinals or Trustless Computer.
Yeah, even though it's in the name, right?
And maybe the goal is to become trustless, but it's not yet.
Yeah, it's not as easy as
I guess you would hope.
We would all want it to be, right?
Right.
But nonetheless, so I think the reason why the take from the hardcore Ordinal influencer crowd or whatever is because I don't know. I wonder if it's like some sort of like a threatening component, like
back bias.
If you're so deeply invested and ingrained into Ordinals, and right now Ordinals is like without a doubt the poster child for build on Bitcoin.
Yeah,
right? It should be, because it is the one that kind of like broke down that barrier for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But maybe the threat is, so some killer app could emerge from something that's non-Ordinals native.
That siphons like
the network effect.
Right.
Users. It's like, damn, dude, we could do like so much more cool stuff. And developers, like, I'm going to build a Trustless Computer app because, here's a docs how to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're essentially leveraging the smart contracts from Ethereum on Trustless Computer. So...
yeah, so you basically do anything. You can issue tokens. You could build logic for those tokens, and you could build whatever you can on ETH because you're leveraging their tools.
That's right.
And then you're rolling all this activity, packaging it up, sending it to Bitcoin. So like the finality exists there.
Yeah.
And so far, who knows? The market has to decide, right?
At one point, you're going to have to do this anyways, because you can't do this on Bitcoin. And even if you could, you would congest it so hard that it would be unusable.
That's true. That's where Stacks comes in. It's like, hey, guys, it's like we've been here this since whole time. It's like we've been telling you guys, eventually you're going to have to use us. And it seems like they've kind of, the Ordinals, I guess, community, whatever, they've kind of allegianced themselves with Stacks.
Yes, they have.
Yeah, they have. Like, because we've talked about in our previous videos this whole L2 and indexer of indexer solution that's being proposed by Domo and the BRC20.
Yeah, and it's not a bad proposal, because we talked about it with Ken Lau from Xverse.
Yeah,
he agreed. You need an indexer of indexers, and so it's happening.
It is happening, but again, who knows how long it's going to take to actually roll out. In the meantime, here's an alternative, I guess, mechanism that developers can play with to try and create new value attached to Bitcoin, right? So right now it starts with alpha, and who knows what's going to come as a result. It's interesting.
So we have someone from Bitcoin City here.
Yeah, one of the devs, I'd imagine.
Yeah, one of the devs. So it says, here's a write-up for the Alpha tech infrastructure. Alpha runs on Trustless Computer, which is number one, a.k.a. NOS.
Fast and the Furious?
Yeah. With an innovative blockchain architecture. Recursive rollups, fast 2-second block times.
Damn.
And cheap average transaction costs.
Yeah, this is the typical, the typical layer 2 pitch, right?
We've heard this fast and cheap.
Fast and cheap,
except centralized, right?
Right.
That's the consequence that they don't talk about.
That's true. Like, you can't know about that stuff.
Right.
But just know you're going to eventually end up on Bitcoin.
Right. So high-level blockchain architecture, there are 4 main components: the mobile application, NOS, which is Trustless Computer number 1, BVM, which is Trustless Computer number 0, and Bitcoin. So basically, you have a transaction in Alpha. It's sweep keys, nitrous oxide system.
Very cool.
Right? Trustless Computer number 1. So optimistic rollups. And then it goes to a Bitcoin virtual machine.
I think that's where the smart contracts rely. So, but really, it's like I think they're using EVM components, right?
I think they are, yeah. Yeah.
Calling it a BVM.
That's how they're able to spin this up so quickly, because they took FriendTech's smart contracts,
which were built on Ethereum.
Yeah. And then they applied this on top of Trustless Computer.
Correct.
And now they have an application that's exactly resembles FriendTech.
Yeah, and those functionalities, that activity, it's generating transactions, right? And then that's the pertinent information that eventually Bitcoin needs to know, right?
Correct.
That's like those transaction hashes, I guess.
Yes.
That's what eventually ends up on Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the sovereign rollups, they get rolled up into Bitcoin here.
There you go.
So we got the mobile application. Nitrous oxide is a trusted computer implemented as an optimistic rollup. Its job is to provide scalability for Bitcoin. And basically, the DApp talks to the execution engine, which is all this layer 2 stuff. This is the low fee, fast transaction times.
That's where eventually we want to be playing. Right?
Correct.
All of us. We're not yet. We still want to fuck up layer 1.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the mission of us devs. It's like we got to really fuck up the first layer before we all migrate to the second one.
That's exactly what happened with Ethereum.
That's what I mean. Yeah. It's going to happen again.
Right? Yeah. So all the fast, cheap transactions up here. There's a data availability on Polygon, smart contracts on Trustless Computer that get rolled up onto layer 1, which is Bitcoin. And so quick note on data availability. Initially, NOS is configured with a hybrid engine, Bitcoin for data validity and Polygon for data storage.
I wonder why Polygon for storage.
Yeah, that is interesting.
It's very interesting. But nonetheless, the data validity is the most important thing. That's what Bitcoin is being used for.
And then Bitcoin virtual machine, Trustless Computer number 0 is a sovereign rollup to Bitcoin. Its job is to provide smart contract capability for Bitcoin. BVM receives the data proofs from NOS and then posts them to Bitcoin. Yeah. So we've talked about this diagram before.
Yeah, we have.
So it's basically users interact and send transactions to a mempool.
Yeah.
Then the BVM writes specific data that it reads from the mempool to Bitcoin. And then a sequencer takes that data that's written onto Bitcoin, reads that data, modifies an Ethereum smart contract, and then you get to see whatever you did.
Back to you.
Back to
the user.
Yeah.
Little stick man.
So it's like a swapping transaction, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You get feedback, right?
Yeah. I mean, this looks pretty
straightforward.
Yeah, looks pretty viable, dude. I'm interested.
Yeah.
And
then finally, Bitcoin is the base blockchain layer. Its job is to provide security, consensus, and finality for the whole stack.
Yeah.
Alpha transactions settle on NOS. NOS settles on BVM. BVM settles on Bitcoin.
So this is a lot, obviously, to kind of throw at you guys at once.
Yeah.
This is obviously a complex architecture, but at the same time, it is pretty refined into very simple. It's just a circular pathway of information travel between.
At first,
layers.
it's complex, but once you read it long enough and repeat it long enough, it's okay.
So it's really not a question of is this technically viable? It's a question of ethos acceptance. Is this is this what we as Bitcoin builder community, whatever, is this how we want the future to proliferate? That's really it. That's all that's in question here. It's starting with alpha. Maybe this is the ultimate showcase of you know what? Fuck your ethos.
Yeah.
It's we're actually building a real killer app with real user activity, generating real transactions and volume and stuff like that. And it's all, here's the proof. It's all exists on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right? So leave us alone.
I mean, we're here on Bitcoin because it's on Bitcoin, not because of Ordinals, right?
Well, Ordinals, they brought us here, dude.
Well, they did, but that's not what kept us here, right? It's on Bitcoin, not Ordinals.
Yeah, but Ordinals has this thing to it though. It's it's got this stench of it's got this pheromone is what I mean of attraction, right?
Yeah, it's like an allure.
Something there you go. That's the word. Yeah, because of its organic origins and the community around it. And
how it exists on Bitcoin.
It's the network effect is what it is.
So there is something to Ordinals, but I feel like anything on Bitcoin is going to be interesting.
Oh, yeah. Agreed. So here's a little, you guys can read through this because it's their story. You want to know who's building all this? Definitely look through this. They have a history. They have a mission and an ethos of their own, right? They're all just trying to make Bitcoin more interesting. And then we're in full support of that for sure. Yeah. And don't forget, there's a whole shitcoin market.
There is.
A whole shitcoin market, because guess what? You could deploy tokens using the Ethereum smart contract.
Yeah.
And you could basically build anything.
Yeah, and I feel like you earn a Trustless Computer token. That's their ETH.
Yeah, it is. It's the gas of the network for sure.
So this is what you're earning when you're using Alpha.
Correct. So I mean, entertainment value, dude. If you're anticipating a lot more apps to or developers to come and build apps after Alpha's potential success, then you can imagine an environment where these tokens have appreciated entertainment value.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So all the tokens are here. All the links will be in the description. If there's any questions, let us know in the comment section below. We did go through a lot.
Yeah. Do you guys want us on Alpha? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, I think we're more likely to be on Alpha rather than FriendTech.
I think I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Just because
something's weird with FriendTech. I don't know what it is.
It's the Coinbase.
Maybe it's the base.
To me, it's the Coinbase thing. It feels like a
coordinated.
Like a industry plant.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel right. This feels a lot more organic.
I feel like this is capitalizing on the mania that FriendTech.
Oh, for sure. It's called those are called gigabrain moves, dude. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. All right, that's it for us. Let us know if you have any questions, and we will catch you in the next video.
Peace.